Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of MTG Arena. Today is Monday, December the 30th, just a couple of more days before the new year. I think it's pretty obvious at this point I've decided not to do any kind of end of the year content. This is both in part because I'm distracted and in part because there's just kind of nothing to celebrate per se in the video game world or the YouTube world, as it were. It has been kind of a struggle against the just a lack of energy and a lack of joy, certainly. But the video game 2019 games came out. I didn't play most of them. The only new game I played was Control, which I got for free because I had to spend $500 on a new video card. And so that has that big caveat on it, and that probably drastically affected my enjoyment of Control. Although, in all fairness, the one thing that I did catch from the Giant Bomb's end of the year discussions is that they didn't seem like they were super hot on Control by the end of the year either. I think it was just another example of people being super hyped on new games and not seriously critically evaluating games. So yeah, the only thing I thought maybe I would do, because there's really no reason to recap, and I think next year there's no reason to recap probably either, because there will just be fewer and fewer games airing on my channel. I think next year, I think we're just going to kind of have a slowdown in general. The only thing I was thinking of doing was making a list of controversies / a blacklist, to just have a actual ordered Excel sheet of all the controversies that have happened and why this company I shouldn't buy games from this company and why I shouldn't buy games from this other company. The Steam winter sale is still going on until the 2nd, but it might end at like midnight the 2nd, so I've got a little bit more spending that I'm going to do there. But honestly, I might just get store credit and then not really even spend the store credit. I might just sit on that cash for sales that come up, because there really isn't any Steam sales between then and now. Now and the summer sales, what I meant to say. The season ends in 29 hours, so we do know that basically speaking, you get 3, maybe 4, I think it will be 4 seasons on each expansion, which would be 4 months, which would then be 3 expansions each year. That doesn't seem quite right, but whatever. This rotation ends in 16 days. So that's when the new expansion comes out, Theros Beyond Death. And we're well suited here. The only thing to think about here is, do I want to get this for 10,000, which I could do, and then buy 50 packs and play the standard shakeup, which the standard shakeup starts in an hour and 25 minutes, so we might do it today, particularly since this gives you XP, a skin, XP, a skin, and XP. And if we look at our mastery, which is over here, a couple more XP things would push me over the edge. But what didn't really happen here, and this is something to take note of, is I really am not going to get even one of these rewards past 110. So they've got it rather scheduled. So you do have to play it quite a bit. And meanwhile, I don't think the store has changed any, because if the store had changed, they would have kind of advertised it more. you've got these skins with gems that aren't really worth it, and then the $10 thing here, which I don't think is really worth getting. So let's go ahead and jump into the game. We have black or red spells that we need to play, so let's do this and play our red deck. It would be really ridiculous to specifically do a deck rebuild right now, like when 16 days I'm gonna open 50 packs, and then that would be the point to do a deck rebuild. We have Green Zix on the chat. Green Zix just subscribed to my channel and commented on the video, and frankly it was kind of a shock to me, a little bit of a shock to the system to even get a new subscriber, because honestly I haven't gotten emails of new subscribers, so I don't know if I've even gotten any in probably a month. Like, it's just been such a dead time for December, and all of my footage except for the live streams are pre-recorded, so either my Halloween month content that is horror games is just really bad, or deal 2 damage to any target. Let's see, deal 2 damage. Or it's just December is a dead time for YouTubers, and I imagine December is mostly a dead time for YouTubers, with a small exception being between Christmas and New Year / back to school points. Back to work, back to school points. So thanks for subscribing, GreenX, is the positive way I should spend that. But yeah, I was really shocked to even get a subscriber. Still, keeping it real, you're still under the crushing limitations of YouTube as a small-time content creator, where I need 1,000 subscribers to even be monetized, when I was monetized before, and happy enough to get the 7 cents a week I was getting. Like, a big part of making this YouTube channel and this content was to potentially have evergreen content that would constantly, without any extra additional work, generate some income, even if it was only like $100 a month. And heck, if I could get it up to even $1,000 or $2,000 a month, that's more than enough to live a meager lifestyle and work a side job. $3,000, $4,000, you're probably at that point made enough to not even have to work at all as an individual. Let's see. Grinning says, I have been gaming TikTok account with like 900. Maybe I can shout you because I like your content. By all means, thank you if you do. Yeah, that'd be great. Like, honestly, all I need is the subscribers, because if I had 1,000 subscribers, the YouTube algorithm would suggest my videos enough that people would watch my videos enough to meet the watch time secondary requirement. I already have a particularly high watch time because I do full playthroughs, long plays of the games. So I was getting, I believe the requirement is like 10,000 watch hours, 10,000 watch hours every quarter or so, and I already am making close to that with just like 300, although maybe that number's dropped down too. I kind of stopped looking at the numbers because they became depressing. And inevitably YouTube will pull the rug out from under small time creators again. I mean, you just know that there will be some kind of adpocalypse that the advertisers will try to create and have, so that they can negotiate for better deals. I just need to play cards. This. And then this. That was probably the wrong way to do this. See, I've been spending most of the week still working on my maker side project of a electronic conference room sign. I've got the QR code that is supposed to link to a calendar somewhat working. It is the wrong size, and what it does is there are what they call versions in QR codes, and the versions determine how big the QR code in general is. The highest version you can get on your screen is the best move, because then there's more redundant information, which is a good thing to have in case part of the screen is obscured. QR code's meant to be printed if one pixel is out of order or misread by a camera. Extra duplicate information is very useful there. So right now I've got it's making the QR code as big as it can be, and then ignoring the test conditions for some reason and just going down a lot further. So I've typed something wrong somewhere, and so I'm getting a very small QR code, but it does work, and it is drawing to the e-ink, e-paper screen quite nicely. There's still a lot of networking things that I need to work on, but I do think I finally figured out what was going wrong with it. The device I'm building it on has an incredibly tiny amount of RAM, so I was literally just running out of RAM. And I guess looking at it from this perspective, when you're building what is effectively an embedded device that with very limited resources, when I was taught to program back in the day, back when I was in school, when they were teaching programming on the cave walls with the cavemen, we really didn't care about RAM that much. And that's kind of funny, because even like when I was learning programming, like these were 386, 486 computers. These were hardly like i5s or i7 computers or anything like that, and they probably did only have about maybe 512 megabytes of RAM, maybe a gig, maybe 2 gigs of RAM. But even at that, the programming seemed to have no problem. Frankly, in the same language. I'm programming it in C, C++. I was programming in C and C++ back then, although it may be that some features have been added to C++ over the years. But yeah, you never really made a program in school big enough. Frankly, my schooling is laughably inadequate on some of that programming in retrospect. Either that or the features just didn't exist when it would have been taught. So I'm having to go, and simple things like by default you would define a variable as an integer, which just means a positive or negative number that's a whole number, and you just type in int space and then the name of the variable. Can't do that in the equipment I'm programming in, because if you do that, then you're making it a 32-bit integer that is using 4 bytes of data. That's a waste, and you really don't have to have the ability to waste that, generally speaking, in your programming. So instead, you have to use a template to call it a uint 8t or uint underscore t, uint 8 underscore t, I believe, is that, which is a way of defining on the fly a template to say make it just 1 byte long, because this is a short number that's never going to go above 1 byte, which would be 254 or 255. Yeah, I think that's 255 as an unsigned number, or 127 as a... No, it's 254 because 0 counts too. I don't know. Small numbers, but a lot of times all you need is small numbers. And in all honesty, since I'm hand coding a lot of the icons, I should break it all up and define a special descriptor for using just 1 bit, since the images are black and white, per pixel, and then that would make it use 1/8 of the amount of RAM. And this normally would just be pedantic, unnecessary optimization in programming, but in this instance it actually is necessary. And because I was using a, frankly, relatively speaking, very large amount of RAM to make the user settings in a JavaScript object format, that was taking a lot of space, and when it just ran out of RAM, it would just start returning garbage. On top of that, every time you use the string function, which you basically are being, I'm finding instructions and helps telling me just don't ever use the string function. Instead, make it a character array. A string is a easier to program, simplistic program of a version of a character array, but it has sub-functions and things that make it easier to do things. Whereas you have to do a lot more work manually if you try to make a character array. But you kind of have to do it, because every time you modify or declare a string, it's also taking up more RAM. So I'm really having to bend over backwards on the code and just do things differently, because it's just a completely different world.
When people start screaming, I know I'm on track.
Let's see, what does this one do? But yeah, I am making progress. I'm figured out a few things, and that is my main distraction. Although I did also do some pre-recorded footage, which it's been probably 4 weeks since I've even bothered. Can I play it this turn if I exile it? I guess I have to do this anyways.
Let's light it up!
Darn it. So, yeah, I played a little bit of Uno. Greenix says I'll help you as much as I can. Thank you. That's great. It's always nice to have people offer their help and be helpful. Uno came out on Steam according to Steam's own dates in 2016, whereas Uno came out for the Xbox 360, and it's the exact same game. This is not going to get me anywhere, but I kind of have to do this. Uno on Steam requires you to have Uplay, and it's online. Did not work for me at all, and I don't know if that's because I run higher network security, or if it's because their servers were just down at that exact time, or if it was because some other factor. or the fact that they've potentially just shut down the whole thing. Let's see. I could have done twice as much damage had I just played that on the field
There's no
first.
problem fire can't solve.
So yeah, Uno, a pretty big disappointment, frankly, because you'd have to get people on Uplay, get people to buy Uno. They really haven't supported it. It's really missing any kind of daily motivators. Like Magic the Gathering Arena here gives you a daily quest and gold, and a reason why you really should come back and try and win at least 10 victories every single day, which is asking quite a lot. Hearthstone did the same thing. Uno has none of that. It gives you like a profile badge if you play a lot that you can build up, and it gives you some achievements that will give you some Uplay reward points, but then you also have to spend the Uplay reward points in to unlock one of the gameplay rules, which is insanity. And you have to
What's that smell? Oh,
let's see.
It's you burning.
Destroy target artifact. Well, can we destroy that? No, that's an enchantment, but we can destroy that. So yeah, it's questionable whether you should buy Uno on a PC anyways. It has controller support, I'll give it that, but it's not Uno Rush, and I didn't check to see if Uno Rush was on Steam, which is a much better game in my opinion. I played a lot more of that than regular Uno on the Xbox 360. It's kind of ridiculous those aren't bundled together. It's kind of ridiculous you're paying any real major price for Uno. It's kind of silly that Mattel, which I think is probably owned by Hasbro now, hasn't made an updated version of it and put it on. Maybe it is on like Facebook, and maybe there is a Android and iOS version of it, and I just don't know. There probably are competitor versions of Uno 2 out there, so you could probably get the game for free on your phone. You could probably do a whole lot of different options that would be more modern, more reasonable to play. It doesn't really have the appeal of a Words with Friends type game where you could take turns and slow it down. You kind of have to you kind of have to play fast. That's its main selling point. So yeah, it's kind of a disappointment of a game that I just did a spotlight on, and that'll air. I do need to go back and finish the previous game, which was a game where you were driving over zombies. That was my last bit of footage for second Halloween, which I started recording and have mostly recorded for around February this year. Well, this year in 2 days, in a couple of days. But honestly, I don't know if I'm even gonna bother to have two time slots filled up with content for the rest of the year, or just one time slot. I probably will get another burst of energy and start pre-recording footage a lot more. Programming things though and working on maker projects is a massive amount of energy suck, but it can also be a motivating factor if you let it, because you can get frustrated at programming something enough that you'll be willing to do anything else, and the anything else can often be can be a motivator to work on your YouTube channel, which is a project you started before that. Greenix says, I saw your Lego City Undercover and I'm wondering, would you record new Lego Star Wars game like Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker Saga? Yes, inevitably I will purchase and play the Lego games. I'm far too pot committed. I have purchased far too many Lego games already. I own real world Legos, so it makes sense to own them, and if I own them, I might as well play them. Also, I find that when the Lego games are good, and spoiler alert for Lego City Undercover, it's probably the worst Lego Star Wars Lego game I've ever played in a few factors, and I wouldn't recommend it for kids, really. But there's two demotivating factors specifically away from wanting to do a lot of Lego games. I've done a lot of them. There was some kind of Windows 10 update that came out and started putting micro stuttering in the Lego games. I thought I had it fixed for a brief second, and then it seemed like there was another Windows 10 update that messed it up again. There's seems to be very little concern or interest in making sure that the Lego games work particularly well on PC, so I've pretty much always recommended buying them and playing them on, I would guess, the Switch or the Xbox or PlayStation at this point, because you'll get a more smoother experience. The other thing is that the Lego games have not been dropping down particularly cheaply. The most recent ones, like Lego DC Villains, I believe would probably be about the last one I haven't bought, and I own 2 or 3 of the older ones that I haven't covered and played, but I've covered most of them on my channel. The Lego DC Super Villains not really getting super cheap, and when it came down to this winter sale, I just didn't feel like spending $10 or $8 or $9 on something that then would also require a season pass to bump it up back to $15 or $20. In particular, there is there is a factor to consider with the Lego Worlds game, in that support for that has been mostly dropped, and yet the price is still not really cheap there. The other demotivating factor is just the way YouTube has done their COPA abuse, for lack of a better term. The way that has gone down, it has not been a good thing for content creators in general. So nobody wants to take the risk of getting some or all of their content or their entire channel detected, assuming there will be some detection, to say that your channel is targeted towards kids. I think most people would argue, and I would definitely argue, that my YouTube content isn't really targeted to kids. It is a critical. I'm a pretty boring sounding person to a 6 or 7 year old. It's for the adults that are potentially buying the games for their kids or themselves. But with that fear, and the YouTube kind of leaked out and didn't tell anybody this, they weren't making very obvious that they only put out notifications for the first 3 videos in a day. So that means I really only have 2 time slots and then a time slot for Magic Arena, which will start airing episodes of that. So there's less room to have a time slot, particularly targeted towards younger kids games. There really aren't a lot of kids games in general on PC. But yeah, I will definitely cover all the Lego games. Greenix says Lego games was like my childhood, so I'm so hyped for the new Lego Star Wars. Yeah, the new Lego Skywalker saga. This is just going to be where they're going to just redo, and I hope they really redo the entirety of the series, and it's not just these are slightly polished versions of the old levels. Does sound very intriguing, like going back and playing it again. As somebody who has played Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga, which is episodes 1 through 6, let's go ahead and switch out from this deck and back to my standard deck, because that's going to be too difficult to get victories otherwise. It is intriguing if they really change it up. I wouldn't want to go back and play Lego Star Wars The Complete Collection a 3rd time. Probably not in at least another 10 years, because it would be just too repetitive there. On the other hand, there is some questions. Will it include any of the Clone Wars, or is that now not canon really? Because that is a up in the air question, certainly, whether the main girl who is from the Clone Wars and the series after the Clone Wars, she reappeared in that. Asuka, I believe is her name. So will any of the Clone Wars and Asuka show up? In the new Lego Star Wars game? That depends heavily on whether she's going to show up and be promoted by Disney. But yeah, they also have added more like shooting galleries and different gameplay styles and voice acting, and like Lego Star Wars originally was the original first Lego Star Wars game that came out, which was episodes 1 through 3. No, it wasn't. I believe it was the other way around. I believe it was 4 through 6 first, then 1 through 3, the prequel content. Like, that was very, very jumping around, platforming, finding collectibles. There was a lot more collectibles. There really was no open world. There was just a hub section. So there's major rooms for changes, but I'm not sure all of those changes will be fully appreciated. There's also certainly some people that are kind of nostalgic for the old way that Lego games worked, and every time there's been a new Lego game, they've added something new. But over the years, it really has started to kind of drastically push Lego games in a different direction. And from what I hear, I haven't played it, the Lego what was it? Lego the Movie, the video game, the Lego Movie, the video game 2 that came out, pushed it in a rather far direction in which people didn't really enjoy. So there's some consideration with that too. Come on. Cast that card. Why does that make me cast a card? I don't know. There's nothing on the field that would have made me cast that card unless, and yet it did. I don't know what happened there. It seems like the programming is getting worse for Magic Arena. Alright. Let's go ahead and attack with this and this because that'll help these. Let's see, Greenix said you can easily crack it for free. Yeah, I don't crack games. I have like over 1,000 games on Steam, so there's no reason for me to bend over backwards and potentially install viruses or mess up my computer to crack games. I'm not that broke. I do e-beg, certainly, and ask people to friend me on Steam and gift me games. And I would always love more games, certainly, but I want them to be legitimate games on Steam. Now, in all fairness, and I'll put this caveat out there, if Steam went out of business tomorrow and the hundreds if not thousands of dollars I've spent on Steam to have a legitimate library of games disappeared, I would be cracking games left and right. Certainly. And there are certainly cases of abandonware games that are old that just you cannot get in any legitimate fashion. I can certainly go into a larger argument about how particularly old games, none of that money is ever going to go into the pockets of anyone who created the game or is creative in any way, and it's just going to go into the pockets of greedy managers and companies that often aren't even the same company that actually developed the game. Atari is a kind of great example of that. The Atari that made Atari arcade games in the 70s is definitely not the Atari that exists now. But if it's on Steam, I prefer to own it legitimately. Also, having so many games, if it's not on my Steam account, it effectively means I don't own it. Even though I am building up some backup collections of whenever there's a free game on the Epic Store, I'll grab that. But yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not making really any moral judgments on people that crack. It's just I'm not in a point where that makes any sense. Let's see. Greenix later said, I've played the complete saga like 5 years ago. Yeah. And I started my channel about 5 years ago, which means I probably played it originally 7 or 8 years ago. Because I did get around to playing it a second time. So if that was like 3 years ago, yeah, it would be getting to the point where I would be playing Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga every 3 or 4 years, and that's just too much. They make too many Star Wars Lego games anyways for that. What would be really surprising is if they just totally broke the mold and made a completely different type of Lego game that played nothing like any of the previous Lego games. But I don't think people would particularly like that, because there have been 2 Apple Arcade Lego games that came out, and there's been no fanfare around them whatsoever, and nobody, as far as I can tell, even likes them. When they tried to make Lego Worlds, which originally was sold as a open world kind of Minecraft clone, that didn't really work either. I heard a fact that I hadn't heard before. Nintendo originally made a long time ago Lego competitor bricks, which obviously they don't do that anymore. That would have been in the late 70s, early 80s. But yeah, I think what we'll probably see is a education from Lego themselves on introducing and integrating technology. You can kind of see that with the Lego Ghost Side sets, where there is an augmented reality games that you can play. There's also a iPad Apple software that just augments real world Lego sets and adds gameplay features to those. And as more of that happens, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point Lego themselves got good enough or just ambitious enough, for better or worse, to get rid of their license with Warner Brothers, parent company of the TT Games, who make all the Lego games. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point those licenses stop happening. So we might eventually see them stop making Lego games in the way that they are now. But they might go forever too. The other argument you could make, though, is that they've kind of run out of things to do, and that's why they are remaking Star Wars again, is because Warner Brothers licenses and other licenses that they can get have run out. There is no more Marvel or DC stories that they really would want to tell, that are big enough to tell. There's no more Star Wars or Indiana Jones or Spielberg movies to license, unless they start getting really crazy and getting all the Disney licenses, which would be kind of cool. And if we saw like a Lego Frozen and a Lego Sleeping Beauty and Lego Aladdin, that would be a great way to go. But if they can't get any of the Disney license, then you're kind of limited to maybe some books, maybe some TV series, but not a lot. Not things that are big enough and impactful enough to sell. Greenix says, I'm gonna go now and probably come back soon. That's fine. Thanks for watching, as long as you did. If you come back, you come back. If you don't. Don't feel pressured. Yeah. The Disney licenses really would be amazing, come to think of it. But then Lego would have to think about what they're doing with the princesses and the Disney licenses. Anyways, the fact that there's a Disney World train for $350 set is ridiculous. The fact that before that was a Disney World castle that was like $350 really means that the Lego sets with those licenses were highly marked up, and I'd still be willing to pay those if I didn't have so many other Lego sets. But there was not really a lot of small sets, nothing that kids who would supposedly be Disney fans would want to do. And all the princesses were put in the Lego Friends category, which Lego Friends doesn't have Lego minifigs. Instead it has Lego dolls that look differently and break the visual aesthetic that's been around for decades. And so that irks some Lego fans if your minifigs get mixed with Friends dolls. Whereas Friends series of content has been very nice to add new pieces that work pretty well with Lego. Like the new flower pieces that they introduced are particularly good. Improvements on the old flower pieces that existed. But yeah, they need to figure out whether Friends is really going to succeed to the point where they could get more Disney princesses and have more Disney sets, bigger sets. I really haven't seen any big Friend sets. They're all this weird. They're weird small sets for girls only, for lack of a better term. Alright. Do I want to attack or do I want to defend? Let's just do no attacks. Well, we don't have a lot of video game news, and I don't even have it up. So, one of the problems with the programming IDE that I'm using is it's built on Java. So, the compiler is built on Java. The programming is, thank goodness, not. But it still does make for some problems, certainly, where it can run out of RAM and crash. For the IDE that I'm using, which is Arduino, that's not an old enough compiler and development environment. I think that's what integrated development environment, I imagine, is what IDE stands for. So yeah, Arduino IDE is not that old to justify being made in Java. So that's kind of a pain. Anyways, news-wise, I can see the beginning of the end, and frankly, as I was scrolling down, I was getting kind of desperate, so I even opened up a few more games that came out on Steam. That I know are obviously going to be troll garbage games, but we might as well cover them. Right. So what do we want to do here? Attack here. I guess attack here. Can't attack here. So attack here. And attack here. This guy's played everything on this field. Creatures can't be counted.
Now you're getting the spirit.
Thought that guy dying would have triggered his own ability, but apparently it doesn't.
You're gonna hurt when this is through.
So, I guess once it leaves the field or dies, it's just done. So we have an incredibly small amount of news, which means that, yeah, we'll probably cover the news, and then I don't know, this might be just a weird, almost silent play experience. I haven't done a silent play in probably half a year, but we got a little bit of victories that need to be done, and maybe I'll leave the special event for Wednesday, when we come back on Wednesday. Go hit that. It's not going to be enough to save me, but Greenix says he's back. Welcome back. Yeah. Like, may just go like an hour and a half or so, and that's it, because once I get these daily quests done, then the only real goal is to get this done. We have 16 days until this ends, so we have to get 15 victories in the next week. So and then the next week we'll have to get another 15 victories. So this standard shakeup was the only thing I was thinking about doing, and we may just leave that for Wednesday. Let's see. Meanwhile, there's really no reason to play ranked right now, so we'll just play the regular. We're still very much having a different experience compared to Hearthstone, as far as it doesn't really feel like you have a much higher chance of winning not playing ranked versus playing ranked. If anything, at certain points, particularly if your rank is low, it feels like you have a much higher chance of winning if you do play ranked. So I'm still getting a feel as far as the community of Magic players. And if Wizards of the Coast and Magic plays their cards right, pun I guess intended, they are on the verge of really being the breakout hit of 2020, assuming that they don't just try to nickel and dime everybody or pull some shenanigans that drives people away. And they're gonna have to work very hard to bring people to playing Magic too. They need that. They need a mobile version out quickly, regardless of whether they are willing to admit that or not. Let's see. I'm gonna play white as the color next turn, so I can play this turn after that. But then, the next expansion certainly could improve things. They also need to work on adding older cards to Arena. They kind of need to make it clear that they're committed to Arena. So things like Magic Online and the Magic Duels games, which were licensed games, are not indicators of the level of support that Arena is going to get. They need to be all in on an Arena. And it seems like that they very well have a chance of doing exactly that. On the other hand, if all of 2020 is just 4 expansions of particularly bad cards, that won't help it. And they really are still going to have to pull off some miracles to get new players to play. They didn't even really do enough in the midst of Activision Blizzard and Hearthstone and the Blitzchung stuff happening. That could have easily been a great time for them to buff up their player base by just saying, putting out a lot of advertisements and cross-advertising against videos of people playing Hearthstone, say on YouTube or Twitch. Like if you were seeing a Magic Arena commercial on every single Hearthstone Twitch stream, and it was coming out directly and coming out hard against Hearthstone, probably would have gotten a lot more people to switch over. Whereas I think mostly a lot of Hearthstone players and Activision Blizzard players in general just kind of gave up on playing Hearthstone and other Activision Blizzard games and didn't look too hard for a replacement. There's a level of generosity that you get here, but then there also is a danger in the next expansion, because I chose in this previous expansion, Throne of Eldraine, to buy the boosted, spend the money and buy the boosted rewards, and I did that not really understanding how long the boosted rewards would last. So there was a chance, but I wasn't really betting on that chance that I was always just going to get boosted rewards. And in actuality, it was 3, maybe 4 months. But if the game tells me I have to spend another $10 or $20, I don't even know how much I spent, to get the boosted rewards for the next expansion, and there's no way to do that with gold or gems, that's gonna suck. And I still really am only playing Magic Arena until the Ben Brode Second Dinner game, Marvel game, is developed and released. Which Ben Brode was the guy who was in charge of Hearthstone and left the company about half a year before all of the drama. So his company, Second Dinner, has a contract to make a Marvel game. I think a Marvel collectible card game is very well poised to be the next big thing, and it could be amazingly huge if it's pushed by Disney. Plus, playing a Marvel game doesn't have the decades of other experienced players who have played Magic. It doesn't have some of the lunacy of people saying Magic the Gathering cards are devil worship or whatever ridiculousness there. It doesn't have some of the just history. There's some negative history that's been around Magic, particularly Magic players, and the way Magic worked. The stereotypical comic book nerd stereotype is also kind of what I would attribute to. I must have not played the right color. I didn't. Nope, I screwed up there. Well, all I have to do is attack and I'll win. So, a Marvel collectible card game makes a lot more sense. Even if a Gwent had come out right now, I think Gwent would have succeeded a lot better. Although, in all fairness, CD Projekt Red was not in any way involved in the development of the Netflix Witcher series, so they didn't know that that was going to happen with any certainty, or that it would be such a big thing. But they also have pretty much abandoned supporting Gwent, because if they were supporting Gwent, they would be pushing it out and relaunching it effectively around the Netflix series. But Gwent played weirdly anyways, so that was kind of the problem, is Gwent really never had enough cards, and it just played in an awkward way. There's kind of a standard format that Magic has established, and you can't really get too far from that. Here's a new card. Let's see. So what did I just get? I got a rare card. I have 9 rare wild cards, and I have 5 mythic rares. This will give me a mythic rare, and then this would just give me uncommon cards. But if we look actually at the collection, this is something that's worth showing off. If you look at what's collected specifically at Throne of Eldraine, the dots here tell you pretty much how many you have, if they're filled in, and how many you could have, which is 4 normally, even though in the case of commanders, which you can tell by these top borders, you can only have 1 in play at a time. So you really don't even need 4 of every card. A lot of decks, probably most decks, would not really require you to have 4 of every card, whereas like some special lands and things, it would certainly make sense to have 4 of every card, 4 of those cards. But this is by far a pretty decent collection. It feels like there are fewer cards compared to an expansion in Hearthstone, and the cards are a little bit more valuable and useful compared to an expansion in Hearthstone, because the expansions in Hearthstone in particular, often you would have cards that just did nothing. You would get 12 cards per hero class, of which there were 9, and only 2 of them would be useful. So 18 out of 112 111 cards, something around that, are actually useful. Then you'd have a bunch of neutral cards that any of the hero classes could use. There are no hero classes in Magic, which I think is for the better, frankly. Yeah, I don't think hero classes would really help this game. But you could do something similar to having a hero class with some of the devotion key phrases in Magic anyways, if they wanted to make a big deal about it. Or if you want to play a game of Commander, you're effectively at that point, you are playing something like a hero class. So they do have something like that. You can see most of the cards I'm missing are big ticket things, and not really missing a lot of them. But I certainly don't have enough wild cards to just go willy-nilly and craft one of each. The reward and return system is also different in Magic, where you just don't get duplicates of rares or mythic rares, or I don't even think you get duplicates of uncommon cards. But you do get duplicates of commons, and then they get magically fed into a hidden box that eventually will give you a reward, but they don't show you that box. So yeah, I really haven't done too bad for my first expansion of Magic here, and Magic Arena seems like it's doing fine. If I had been wiser and jumped the shark a little bit quicker, I would have jumped into Magic day one of the beta, and that is totally my intention with the Marvel card game, is to get in on it day one and try not to spend too much money on it as usual, because I really don't want to just become a whale and put all my money in a collectible card game that may be entertaining for 4 or 5 years, even 10 years, but it can't be the only form of entertainment. I like to play a lot of different games when I'm playing video games. The one thing I could complain about, though, is both Hearthstone and Magic still have the lineup of daily quests where you really have to play like every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, like my schedule. You can play every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, but the main factor there is you've got to play every 3 days at minimum, so you could also rotate it and play every single 3 days if your schedule allows for that. It would be much nicer if I could just jump in and play every Wednesday once a week and potentially play 15 games or get 15 victories, and that would just satisfy all the daily rewards. And I don't think either one of these card games really need to play towards a community of people that are going to spend 12 hours a day every day playing Magic. Those people will play Magic Arena or Magic in the real world, paper Magic, regardless of whether you motivate them or not, because they've already been caught hook, line, and sinker into the lifestyle, and that's how they sell it as a lifestyle game. They need to back off on that a little bit and be more reasonable.
I know 88 ways to defeat.
You can't sell a lifestyle game
I have just the trick for this.
to a 12-year-old who has no money and has no extra time. Maybe gets an hour or two of screen time a day. If cell phones were a thing when I was in school and I could play something like Hearthstone or Magic in school, I would probably have been doing it non-stop all day and gotten in trouble probably every single day because of it. I don't think I would have had any way to self-control or regulate around that.
Contain your rage.
Anyways, let's cover the news. We have a game here on Steam called Visterious Saga War of the Scions. It's rated very positively, but it looks to me like it's just a RPG game that's not even 16:9. Perhaps this is an older game getting republished on PC from Dingen Entertainment, which I do recognize that as a publisher, but I'm not sure exactly what they publish. It's $19.99 in English only, with no full audio. So that doesn't strike me as a particularly interesting one. Let's see, Dingen Entertainment has crosscode and disc creatures. What else would I recognize them from? Iconoclast, yeah. I do recognize this publisher, but they haven't really published anything great. Here, I need to choose a lot. So that's not a game that I'm going to put on my follow list. I do think I will have to do a follow list cleanup fairly recently. Soon. That's the word I'm trying to say. Yeah, soon. In the next couple of months, I imagine I will have to do a follow list because I've probably been really generous and have a lot of games there that are on the follow list, and I could probably wait till 6 months into the year, but that would be pretty easy, because then anything before 2019, December 31st, 2019, would have been given at least 6 months at that point to look at, and thus I could get rid of them off the follow list if it's not a good quality game, or I could promote it from the follow list to the actual wish list, which I probably should do a wish list cleanup in about a year. But my wish list really wouldn't be cleaned up too much even in about a year, because I'm fairly lenient to put games on the follow list, and then rather strict to put games on the wish list. Even saying that, though, there were definitely games I was looking at on sale on my wish list that really weren't catching my attention. Let's not attack with those. Just attack with this. Next, we have a game on Steam called Monkey Go Happy, which looks like it's a kid's game. Again, not widescreen. It doesn't look like it's anything of enough quality that I'd recommend it as a kid's game, though. It's free, so I guess the price is right. 75 stages of puzzling. English only. Ad-free, no in-app purchases. It says, okay.
Knowledge is not without price.
So, yeah. Whenever I draw a card, I'm gonna deal 2 damage.
I am your inner demon.
There we go. So let's get rid of this guy. Yeah, I don't think Monkey Go Happy, though, even at free, is something you probably would want to get. Even if you are getting a game for a little kid, I feel like you have to probably, before even looking over the shoulder of a kid and watching them play a game, you probably need to play the game yourself, particularly on Steam, where there is just no quality
I may
control.
look like a demon, but I have the heart of a warlord. You have fresh blood is ideal for divination.
You sure do get a lot more
Try
picture
not to think too hard.
when you get that he's standing on like a big ball. I don't see any of that on the actual card. So is there something I can do here?
Suffer the dreams of the damned.
Let's see. Play this first. That'll increase the amount of damage these guys do. Put this on the field. Put this on the field. Attack here, I guess. Yep. Gamatsu has an article here. Kowloon's Gate VR Suzuka is coming to Switch. Do we have any better image than that? First launched on the PlayStation VR October 2017. We don't have anything else to even describe what it is. Let's see. It seems like you're in an amusement park in VR in this game, which I assume this probably is some kind of horror game. So a VR game is being ported to the Switch. It's still being called VR, but it's not VR. Interesting. See if we can see the tease back in June. Nope, not really. See this article from 2017. We see an image here. Yep, it seems like it's kind of a nothing game as far as I can tell. So yeah, we definitely are at the end of the year, and I am definitely scraping the bottom of the barrel as far as news. Tech Raptor has an article here. Cardpocalypse is better than the paper cut. Looks like it's a collectible card game, or maybe a trading card game, or a deck building game. Maybe it doesn't have the collectible part or the trading card part. Let's see. On the whole, Cardpocalypse is a pretty polarizing game. If you're looking for a new card game to play and haven't got the friends, money, or inclination to pick up a physical game, then you'll probably have a good time. If you're a CCG veteran, collectible card game veteran, who has extensive real-world and virtual collection, then it seems unlikely you'll find much new or exciting about the mechanics. The art, plot, and characters are certainly very nostalgic if you're looking at reliving the past. No, that says revealing, but I think it's supposed to be reveling in the past a little. And you may find the game elements interesting enough to stay the course. If you're looking for something with deeper mechanics, then you're better off with Hearthstone and Magic Arena. Okay. Well, I guess that is that. I might check out Cardpocalypse, but like there are several collectible card games, particularly ones like Slay the Spire, where they're not collectible card games. They're deck building games. You start with all the cards, and I'm willing to check those out on Steam, but I am also not bending over backwards or trying to play 2 or 3 collectible card games at the same time. So it gets kind of hard to justify. It gets hard to justify making the extra effort to play a second card game. This and this. Probably shouldn't have attacked with this, come to think of it. Yeah, that was a mistake. But whatever. We'll see if he lets it through. Open Critic has an article here. Sony has approved a patent for a new PlayStation controller, which is not the right phrasing. It should be Sony has gotten a new patent approved for a new PlayStation controller. Or maybe Sony has a new patent approved for, or no, it should be Sony has a new PlayStation controller patent approved. And that would get rid of at least one A and make a lot more sense. I saw the screenshots of this and it doesn't seem like they're showing them here. Of the patent images. It doesn't seem like the Sony, which let's just call it the prototypical DualShock 5, I believe would be the next DualShock. Doesn't look like it's doing too much different. Seems like they're putting some triggers around the grips, kind of like how the Xbox Pro controller has some flaps and attachments you can add there. But it doesn't seem like for the next generation we're going to see much changes in the controller technology. I still feel like they need a mouse wheel of some sort to switch between guns, because there are more and more games now where you can carry all the guns you ever want, but it's getting even ridiculous with holding down a left trigger and having an 8-way directional selector. There are more guns than even those 8 often available. Is this my turn? I guess. So, yeah, there is this possibility that they could improve controllers a little bit and add like a new type of input, but there really isn't too much else to add to it. Have a microphone in it so it can do like Alexa style inputs maybe, or which would be Cortana for the Microsoft stuff. That would be kind of cool. Or they could have better speakers in the controllers, certainly better vibration. You can always improve things a little bit. Cheaper controllers would be nice. But I don't really feel like there's too much more there. I don't see why you'd do something crazy like put a fingerprint reader in there, or a camera in it. Perhaps maybe if you put a camera in it, it would have some kind of augmented reality function, but that would be too expensive and too creepy for a video game console system. So they're just sticking with what they are and just refining it, and there's, I don't think, anything really wrong with that. Alright. So what do we want to do? End our turn now. Or bend one guy. Because it takes 5 and I wouldn't have 5 to bend him again. I think we just bend this guy and then we attack. We just tap him and then we attack with everything. He can defend against 1 and it doesn't matter, because unless he can get a second person on the field, he'll be so close to losing and I'll have so much health that nearly any card I draw will win it for me. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam here called Town Defense, which I misread as Tower Defense, but it really doesn't matter because one quick look at it, you can see it is a low effort asset flip game. It's early access, free, and English and not worth any other consideration or anyone's time. Let me make sure this is YouTube friendly. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here for the PlayStation 4 and Switch. Boka Hime Project opening movie and fact sheet. Sneak into a girl for refined young ladies to find out the truth behind an incident that put your older sister in a coma. So this is the cross-dressing game where this character is male dressing up as a girl, and they have all kinds of fun with that as a visual novel, I believe is what it is. Let's see. Yeah, tagged as visual novel. You don't get a ton of animes around that. Here's our Bola Citadel. So now I would just need to get 6 more or 5 more creatures or artifacts and enchantments on the field, and then I could do 10 damage. And Bola Citadel will help me do fairly well. Do this. This. Gonna have to do this. That's gonna cost me 6 life. And what do we want to do here? Tap creature. Do I have enough to tap twice? I don't think I do. Just gonna go ahead and do no attack in the turn. And then in the opponent's turn, we're gonna tap. So tap this creature. And then we did have enough where we could have tapped them both and we could have won the other time. This guy's a defender, which means he can't attack. But he can defend, certainly, so it'll be kind of a problem next turn. It's weird how Magic can kind of slow down even when you've got your game-winning solution on the field and it should win. Certainly is a little awkward. Alright, so this one here, we'll just take this cat and put that on the field. And so now that this cat is on top of the deck, I can play it for 1 health. That activates its ability and wins the game for me. Another victory with another couple of rewards. How many are we away from? 250. And this would give me like 25 XP. This will give you like 250 with the next victory. So we might be doing fine. Next we have a game on Steam here called Door 2 Key, which to me looks like it might be an asset flip puzzle game, but it might not be. It might be something like The Witness. It might actually be something, just maybe not as polished as The Witness. The Witness was incredibly polished. $7.99. They're mentioning Abduction and A Witness. I would argue Abduction had kind of a very small number of puzzles, and it was a little disappointing in that. And it all kind of centered around one main gameplay mechanic. Let's see if this developer's made something else. They've got a game here that's called Door that's mixed reviewed. They have Golden Key, Pandora's Room, and Forever Power of the Void. So to me, it seems to me like they're not doing a great job. And Door here, I would argue, has more of a consistent art style than Door 2 does. And yeah, it just does look like it's the same thing. Scale's a little bit bigger, a little bit more polished. If we skip through this video, I'll put this on the follow list, but almost certainly this is garbage. There, I need to play, or I'm gonna concede the game automatically. The game Door 2 is also English-Russian, which I'm always suspect of Russian games for the chance that they might be Russian troll games. But yeah, I'll give it a chance. I'll put it on the follow list. We'll see if anybody buys it and reviews it. Reviews it in English. I would love to see more puzzle games like The Witness be made and come out, but that takes a lot more effort than a lot of people are willing to do, and it is such a niche genre that you just don't have AAA or AA or even single A developers try to make puzzle games alone. They always try to add some other element, and the other element constantly reduces the amount of time and development is putting into the puzzles, to the point where most puzzles in AAA games are jokes and they're just added on to break up the running and gunning. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. Martian Forest, Mylene and the Forest Gift. Complete edition for PS4 and Switch has been delayed to 2020. Apparently Mylene and Rosalina voice actor to be replaced. What happened? Last time a voice actor was replaced in a Japanese game is because they were caught with drugs. But it may just be they didn't like the voice actor. Let's see. Oh, the voice actress is on a work hiatus. They're going to replace the voice acting because of that, so it's kind of a remake. It's certainly not uncommon though for a Japanese developer to announce a game early and then push back the release date. They seem to love to do that. They love to tease out and drag out the announcement over the course of 6 months to a year and a half. Like, we've got one new screenshot to show you. We've got one new bit of information to reveal to you. If you think the way Western game developers tease things at E3 and then don't release the game for 2 years later is bad, Japanese game developers are way worse. I'm watching the video here and it seems like it is just a bunch of chibi anime 3D wolf girls in a RPG of some sort. It looks like it's mostly a dungeon crawler from a top-down perspective, if I was to guess. It doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look amazingly good. And yeah, it's PS4 and Switch only, so that wouldn't really be a game I would play anyways. Although, in all fairness, I am thinking about getting a Switch. But if I do get a Switch, I'm going to get it relatively quickly in the next couple of months. And I just want to play like the Mario game and the Zelda game, and it's just for my own like personal entertainment. I won't try to hook that up and record it. I don't have the equipment, and Nintendo copyright strikes all their games anyways. That's why I don't cover their games. So yeah, I wouldn't do too much with it, and then I think I would give it away as a gift to someone else, to a much younger kid, after I've had my fill with it. let's see. I'm really stretching this out because there's about 15 more articles I have that I can talk about, and then that is that. This is a point where I'm just gonna not attack with anything except for this, and this I guess would be, nope, it's just not attack with anything. Let's see, Gamatsu has an article here. Waru Ars Notoria debut trailer and opening movie for smartphones. Looking for real magic RPG, due out in spring of 2020 in Japan. Yep, it looks like it's a anime RPG game for smartphones. Seems like it is. Ooh, it's friending online. There's a game I play on my cell phone called Destiny Child, which is an adult game, lewd, and they had me sign up online games. And the developer for the global version was Line Games, but they stopped working with Shift Up at that point. So I guess they moved on to working on this game. So this is probably a gacha game where you're going to spend a lot of money if you want to get everything, and you really would have to get in on day one. And I don't know if it's based on any anime or anything like that. Let's see. Jump through the trailer and see if I can get any indication more of how the game will actually play, because that would be kind of the thing you would want more than anything, is how does this smartphone game play. The reason why I like Destiny Child in particular is because it just plays itself, with the exception of one small friend games that you could do friend games. If you could do those automatically, it would be perfect. But in all honesty, I would also say, with the involvement of Line Games stopping, the games have Destiny Child has gotten a lot better and a lot less greedy. So take that for whatever that means, I suppose. Yeah, this doesn't tell me anything about how the game actually plays. Let's see. Well, they say it's an RPG, and that's pretty much all they want. And they want 50,000 pre-registrations to reward everybody who signs up for the beta. Of course, if that game did become super popular for Western people outside of Japan, you probably have to wait a whole year for a global version, if a global version even gets made, and that would be definitely a consideration. Let's see. It's probably not worth it, but if it is worth it, you would want to get in on day one. I really don't buy into some people try to play like the original versions outside of their region, but I think you're just losing way too much content and story at that point if you don't speak the language, if you're not supposed to be playing that version, if you're not really welcome to play that version. Often, too, the Japanese versions of games are incredibly expensive. The global version of Destiny Child is way more generous than its original Korean version or the Japanese version is. And it seems like the global version is rapidly catching up with the content that was released earlier in the previous versions. Next we have a game on Steam called Exit From, which is one of these horror adventure escape to room games. which we're seeing more and more of these, and they seem to just very consistently get more and more polished, and it's getting harder to tell whether they are low effort garbage games or whether they actually are worth playing. That this one's being compared to the Evil Within, which I need to play Evil Within 2 at some point. It's $4.49, says it has full audio for English and Russian. Again, very possibly a Russian game. But I'll put it on the follow list. It's early access, so I wouldn't buy it until it wasn't early access anyways. There we go, that's the card I needed to play this. So neither one of these have reach, so I can just start attacking with that. I can't attack with that though, because it will just give him 1 health, and every time. Next we have a game on Steam called Jack Troubles. Is that how you spell trouble? T-R-U-B-L-E-S? Isn't it? I don't know. I'd have to look it up. Looks like a first-person asset flip game if I was to guess, because of the way this looks like it's designed. And boy, he just jumped extremely high. Let's see, this is 99 cents, which is too cheap for a first-person shooter. It says it's English only with full auto. Seems to only have controller, mouse and keyboard support. Yeah. I think it's pretty obvious there's not enough level of polish here that this would be a real game. But the screenshots certainly could deceive a lot of people into thinking it is. But the price certainly isn't going to trick too many people. Put that on the field. Put that on the field. And in the turn. Next we have a game on Steam called Cowboy, which is a low effort name for a low effort game. And my definition of low effort really is getting stretched, because again, this kind of looks polished. It kind of looks like it's a thing. Somebody's actually riding a horse in this game, fighting a giant rat. You know these are asset flips. The UI doesn't look like total garbage, it just looks like half garbage. But it's 99 cents, which is a red flag. It's English only, says it has full audio. It's also the same control instructions in the description, so let's look at this developer. Yep, this developer put out Cowboy, Jack Troubles, and Alien Invasion all on the exact same name. Which, if you were going to try to be a new publisher on Steam, why in the world would you cannibalize your own potential sales by competing against yourself and releasing your 3 games at the same time? Why not stagger it a couple of days, a couple of weeks, a couple of months? The only people that really would want to release games at the same time are people that are just trying to flood the games on Steam's marketplace and just try to make a quick buck or pull some other kind of fraud. And there's probably some other ways that frauds are being done on Steam. Speaking of something that nears fraud, I'm going to probably end up spending an entire day or half a day just buying trading cards to make bigger badges to raise my friend level, which is kind of a pointless thing. I have probably like 5 friends on Steam, and I that's more than I think anybody ever actually needs, since I'm not going to really play with anybody. Although the challenges right now are getting insane because they want you to watch somebody else while they're playing a game on Steam and invite somebody else to play a game while you're in the lobby, which I probably am going to have to pull out something like Counter-Strike Go or something. Just jump into Counter-Strike Go, a game I've never played, just to use as a example to invite people to the lobby and see if that works. I've got 10 health here. Let's see if we can make this happen. Okay. These two have summoning circuit, yes. There we go. So, no attacks. F6, I need 3 more cards on the field, which I can do a couple different ways. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Get a job. Moon Studios is hiring a remote senior games designer. Feel like we've already seen this listing, but I'll mention it again. I definitely do need more people just for random reasons to friend me on Steam. But there's such a small reason to do that if you're not going to play games with them. Yeah, I guess I could jump into Borderlands 2 and see if I could invite anybody to the lobby of that. Alright, so you draw a card here, and then that lets me play this, and this, and this, and then this. And we are done. We've won. Sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Deal 2 damage. Plus, Vindictive Vampire will do 6 damage too. Which will get my health back up a little. So we've got a regular card and a mythic rare card. And almost certainly I don't have these cards. But at this point, it's just every level you go up from this point, you will get a uncommon card, which is not bad. The standard shakeup is now happening here. We'll do that on Wednesday. And yeah, 1,000 points. So you're talking, you get, if you get 0 to 1 rewards, when you'll get this. If you get 2 wins, you get this. If you get 3 wins, you get this. If you get 4 wins, you get this. And if you get 5 wins, you get this. And I don't believe this is one of these events where you lose on 3 losses. It's nice to see the art on the cards expanded a lot more too. That's something that Paper Magic really couldn't have happened. Although in all fairness, I would say this ear looks like it needs to be redrawn because it is not really matching the skin tone so much of the face. And this is kind of a great example of what was the game that's called Duress, which is what this art is from. What was it actually depicting? And now you can see, oh, it's some kind of living thorns that are about to stab her if she moves even a little. I think we could probably play one more game, and if I move very quickly, we'll be done with the news, and then we can call it a day. We have a game here on Steam called Granny Chapter 2. With the looks of this art, this looks like an extremely low effort horror game. Yeah, does not look good at all. They want $4.99, and they say it's English for full audio, which is questionable. What's interesting here too is you've got 99-cent games that we've seen today that look way better than this, and yet there is that weird split that seems to happen where some games really do want $5, even though they are obviously garbage games, and some games that aren't so obvious that they're terrible want only 99 cents. That being said, so far of the 30 or so 99-cent games that I've bought, that I've just bought and been flippant about purchasing and playing, none of them have been hidden gems. They've been pretty terrible. There probably are a few 99-cent games out there, like the Sega Master System collection games probably go on sale for 99 cents every now and then, and you can't really say that they're terrible at that price. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called the Encore Casino Games Collection, which is widescreen, which is something. I am always kind of looking for casino games that might be good. This is $16.99, which is part of a problem. It also has a third-party in-user license agreement for no reason. It's full audio English. There's no in-app purchases or anything, so that's kind of the reason why you don't see these kind of games anymore, is because people want to put in-app purchases in them. I'm going to put this on the follow list because while it certainly isn't visually the most polished thing I've ever seen, it's not got a lot of competition so far that I've found. On the other hand, it may just be so terrible or it's so poorly programmed it might not work. The Xbox Live Arcade days of the Xbox 360 had a full house poker, full tilt poker game that I played quite a bit, and a lot of those games really never got replaced with anything or got new versions of them. So I guess, yes, I could, on a PC I could go to some gambling site and play poker, and maybe, well, almost certainly there's a decent non-gambling version of poker on your cell phone. But Steam seems to be oddly devoid of a really good poker experience, unless you want to play something like Telltale Poker, which I'm not even sure you can buy Telltale Poker, and those games were a little bit too weird and a little bit too talky to be the default recommendation for a poker game. Alright, let's do this. So every time this guy is supposed to be getting +1/+1, but my Blight Beetle is stopping that from happening. So he's just hitting me for 1 health, which you can't even do anymore because I can block him. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article here for the PS4 and Switch. Shibito Magiri crowdfunding campaign has been fully funded. 17 days remain to reach the stretch goals. This looks like it is a detective horror maybe RPG game, looking at these elements. Though I would pretty much do that. Third entry in the Experiences Spirit Hunter Horror Adventure game series following Deathmark and NG. Both of games I've recognized the names of. I'm not sure they were well received or not. If anything, I would put those two games as one of many Japanese games that just didn't get any coverage at all. So even though they are into the third game of their series, I have no idea. And since that wasn't a PC game, I don't believe there's kind of nothing I can say there. It'll be interesting to see if the trend towards more Japanese games coming to PC continues or dies down with the next version of the PlayStation coming out. Let's go ahead and put this on the field. And just no attacks. I'm just waiting because I can pretty much win in one turn if I do this right. 1 or 2 turns. Alright, well. Let's just not block. Just don't block him. See if he plays 3 or 4 cards and somehow buffs them up to 18 damage. Next we have a game on Steam called Havoc King RPG. That sounds like a Chinese game if I was to guess. This looks like it is a cell phone or just a really old or just wrong resolution game. It's free to play, English only. It looks terrible. Another RPG Maker failure. Let's see. Put that on the field. Put that on the field. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Schrodinger's Cat Simulator PT, which is clearly a troll game in which it is, I think, 100% being built around the concept of killing a cat over and over again. Just kind of an animal cruelty in Schrodinger's theoretical experiment. This game is free to play. It's clearly a troll game. It's English. It says it's full audio. It really probably isn't. It probably just has sound effects. They still very much need to create a dividing line between something being fully voiced and it claiming it has full audio, because anything with sound effects says it has full audio, and like tons of terrible games on Steam say that. Where I think most people, when they see full audio, want to know that there's voice dialogue lines throughout 90% of all the dialogue. Like when a character is talking, and it is a game that characters talk, you want to hear voice acting. If a character is talking and you're not hearing voice acting, then it shouldn't be labeled as full audio. Unfortunately, I don't think we can really do anything about it now on Steam other than to have every single game developer recertify their game under stricter standards and actually allow the game to be flagged if it's mislabeled, which, like, mislabelings on store pages go unpunished 100% of the time. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Viper, which is either a 90s game, says it came out in 1998. Or just a really badly programmed modern game would have been my other choice. That being said, I don't recognize a game called Viper. It sounds like something from the 1980s, early 90s, but that doesn't mean it's good, and that doesn't really mean it's relevant. It's $4.54. It's English only. It's from Pico Interactive, which Pico Interactive is kind of known for publishing old games, but not particularly great games. So it's being published by Throwback Entertainment, which has a long list here of old games, of which only a few of which are realistically something you'd want to own. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and take that action. And now I could sacrifice a whole bunch of cards. Or I could attack now. Next, let's go ahead and attack, attack, and attack, and attack, and attack. And just see how many they want to defend with. Of course, if he was smart, he would defend with all 5 of his cards against this guy. That's his best bet. Meanwhile, we have a game on Steam here called Yang 2020 Path to Presidency, which this is one of those political troll joke games. It looks a little bit more polished than most of them, but not something I would give money to. $6.99, English only. Split screen player versus player only, so there's no real programming in it. Alright. Sacrifice these guys to make him sacrifice 3 guys. Which just probably should have been an in-game thing I played later. Not something that I waited to activate. Yang 2020 Path to Presidency, of course, not making it to the follow list. I suppose it's worth mentioning that RetroArx on their YouTube page put out a video showing off what RetroArch version 1.8.2, what's new. It seems like this version was pretty big, with automatic updating and integrated video playback into it. They show off part of the anime movie Paprika, which is going to get copyright claimed almost certainly, when they should have used something like Sintel, S-I-N-T-E-L, which is an open source video that shows off Blender animation and would have been just as good. It has some assistive features and some just ease of life features in which options disappear when they're not valid, but it has automatic core updating, so you just update all the emulation cores that you have installed. So it's nice. They're moving in the right direction. They also put out a note here that I haven't read yet. RetroArch NetPlay Relay Servers updates. we're going to release a new hotfix soon, probably called RetroArch 1.83. This will not be a spectacularly new release, but a necessary patch bug fix. We'll also be releasing more information. Let's see, we fixed a critical bug that would cause all players to be disconnected from the relay server if one player was leaving the game. The bug has been open for 1 year and we're finally able to fix it. We fixed the quote spectator bug. So they're still working on netplay being the ability to play against people or with people across the internet on very old games that definitely did not have netcode enabled. So for instance, Super Mario Brothers, 2-player taking turns could be played across the world with no real problem, or just Mario Brothers where 2 players are on the screen at the same time. The arcade game could be played 2-player at the same time with no real issue. And it certainly the efforts of people like LibRetro and RetroArch and to a slightly smaller smaller group of RetroPie has really breathed a lot of new life into very, very old games that certainly aren't getting much love from their original creator, Nintendo, who just sells them on the eShop or gives them away for free and doesn't do much. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. Polyroll will scratch your Sonic itch, which, okay, a non-Sonic Sonic game sounds like it might be an interesting idea. The graphics here don't look amazingly good, and in all fairness, I probably would overlook this game if I did try to look at it. The final paragraph goes, bonus game quibbles aside, I have had a lot of fun with Polyroll and intend to play more. It's a platformer made from the elements of the best Mario and Sonic and contains well-balanced difficulty so that while challenging, it's not an infuriating retro platformer, which I find most games trying to be or look or act like a retro game do play horribly and become incredibly frustrating. So here's the Steam store page, and you can see it's rated positive with 11 reviews, so that I think is good enough to put it on the follow list. Only thing here is the studio name. Do I know HOF? They made a game called Death Extinction. What's the reviews on Death Extinction? Mixed. Alright, well, I'll give it a chance. Put this on the follow list. And then, let's see. We'll just sit here and cover the rest of the news, since there's only about 4 more things. And then, probably, I'll get at least 4 more victories off screen, but maybe not, because I am also spending a lot of time programming, and if I'm not going to fall asleep, which who knows when that happens these days, it has just been crazy. I'll probably be programming instead of playing Magic. Unfortunately, can't do both. I really need an intern at some point that would just play these card games for me and get the daily wins. Some assistant. Of course, I couldn't pay him. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Zombie World Apocalypse VR. It looks visually terribly. I don't see any reason why you would want to play a zombie or horror game if the graphics look bad. Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Particularly a VR one where you're going to struggle a little bit more to move yourself and position yourself and shoot, and you're going to get frustrated and exhausted a little bit faster. This game is $8.99, which is just at the bottom level of a VR game. Not too cheap, but kind of cheap. It says it has English full audio and it's early access. And see, the funny thing about putting a game in early access is you really don't get any special excuses for the graphics looking terrible. Where a actual game in development, the graphics might be placeholder graphics until the last month of development, and nobody would really bat an eye about that. But most in development games don't get shown until the final graphics or near final graphics have been implemented. Next, we have a game on Steam called Rescuers 2019, which is clearly just an asset flip person shooter game for 99 cents. So nothing needs to be said more about that. And no big surprise that we put very few games, and there were very few games to even look at. Very few games on the wish list today, since it's just in the and real game developers are not going to be releasing games right now. Gamatsu has an article here: PC, PS4, Switch, and Xbox One. Digimon Survive screenshots. Sakai Kamijima, Floramon, and Free Movement, and more. So these definitely are not the characters that I would recognize from Season 1, Season 2 of Digimon, even Season 3 or 4. Although these Digimon don't seem like they've changed too much. If anything, I would say Digimon has done a better job at this point of staying true to its roots than Pokemon has, because of the Pokemon Dexit situation and the fact that Pokemon have just gotten wilder and crazier over the years. If anything, the refreshing reboot part of the Digimon series of games and animes and such was that the characters, for the most part, got refreshed every season or so. And so the human characters changed while the Digimon stayed the same, even if the storyline, at least in the English translations, didn't even have the Digimon coming from the same universe. Here's TechRaptor's coverage of the article. Sony files patent for a new PlayStation controller design. I don't think this is a new image, but they've got some patent images. Here it looks like there's probably some new triggers, around the grips, which might be hard for some people to actually actuate. And this is just an E. This is just a E thing. So this just scrolls down this PDF format, and if there are images, I wouldn't be surprised if these images don't load. There you go. They're definitely not going to change too much, and the way these things work in particular is whatever they're showing are just general descriptions and not a direct indicator of what the final product will look like. Maybe they're going to put a touchpad in the back, but it's not like the touchpad in the front of the PlayStation controller is used a ton, so that would be a little weird. And with that, then that just brings me to the Humble Bundle. So let's see if there's any new Humble Bundle, and then we'll just wrap up. I doubt there will be too many new tweets, and I doubt there will be a new Humble Bundle too. The Jingle Jam ends in a day and 15 hours. And that's it. Yep. No new Humble Bundles. See, we can talk about that, I suppose. Does YouTube hate small creators? Question. Answer is, as much as they hate everybody else. But kinda, yeah, they kinda do. Let's see. Valve has revealed the Steam games with the most simultaneous players in 2019. Valve came out with several lists on their blog, and I didn't bother to really cover them because, yeah, there's really just not a reason to go through it. So yeah, here's the 2 new tweets that are worth mentioning. TechRaptor has an article here. Japanese websites let you create your own Pokemon Adventure highlight video. Which, okay. How does it do that? I guess maybe you just pick and choose some things, and then it generates a video based on that. And then TechRaptor's other article, Valve has revealed the Steam games with most simultaneous players. Let's see what this list. It's not The Witcher. So games with over 100,000 simultaneous players included Total War, Destiny 2, Rainbow Six Siege, Dota, GTA 5, Halo, Master Chief Collection, Path of Exile, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, Warframe, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, Dota 2. Now, that's an incredibly short list for the thousands of games on Steam, and it does point out the ridiculousness that one of Steam's challenges and quest is to get someone get one of your friends in on the lobby of a game you play. It's just not likely to happen. Meanwhile, games with 50,000 simultaneous players, which 100,000 and 50,000 is kind of low, but it does kind of go to show that even though video games are the biggest industry ever, it's really not appointment entertainment. There's never a point where everybody is playing video games at the same time. People play them when they have time, and you're not watching, for instance, a Game of Thrones episode as soon as it airs, which I wouldn't be surprised if you're getting 1 million or 500,000 on some of the finales of Game of Thrones. I'd have to go back and look up the numbers. But games with over 50,000 simultaneous players this year were Rocket League, Devil May Cry 5. I didn't think that had any multiplayer, but still a lot of people are playing it. Monster Hunter World, that makes sense. Rust, Civ 6, Football Manager 2020, Gary's Mod. Too many people play Football Manager games. Ark Survival Evolved, Team Fortress 2, Mordhau, Risk of Rain, Atlas, Borderlands 2, which is kind of surprising, but not super surprising. People playing that because of Borderlands 3 coming out and it being an Epic Store exclusive, so people getting their itch filled a different way. Resident Evil 2, Terraria, No Man's Sky, Ring of Elysium, Red Dead Redemption 2, Dead by Daylight. What would be interesting here is to know how many simultaneous players did Fortnite have at its best point in the year, because I wouldn't be surprised if there was 1 million people at the same time playing Fortnite also. Let's see. Valve also lists the game of there are over 25 to 15,000 simultaneous players. Click here to see. Apparently that list is particularly long. And see, they're doing it on Valve's site very much like these are games available for sale, and you can see I own a lot of them, and I own The Witcher 3, but not on Steam, and I don't own the DLC, so I never got around to playing that. I love the old Code Vein, but $41 discounted is still too expensive. I'd love to own Bloodstained, same problem, $27.99. Japanese games, more niche games, get more expensive certainly. Then some of these do seem like they are just kind of troll games, or Black Desert Online, for instance, gets pushed and promoted on YouTube quite a bit. I see a lot of ads for that. And not a great reason why people would be playing Left 4 Dead 2, other than they got it recently and it was cheap. And you can almost always get the Valve games cheap. And then there's a best of 2019 games, top sellers, top new releases, top early access graduates, top VR games, most simultaneous players. There's a whole list here. Let's see, early access graduates. Slay the Spire left early access. Beat Saber left early access. Is there anything else worth mentioning here? Fell Seals Arbiter's Mark. It's on my wish list. Deader School left early access. This, I believe, is an FTL type game. Alright, that's not a terrible list of things that left early access. I'm not going to bother to look at the top selling VR games. Actually, I am, because I'd like to see what they are. Boneworks, Beat Saber makes sense, Arizona. This Virtual Girlfriend software, Rick and Morty makes sense. Pre-ordering Half-Life Alex makes sense. Not a long list here. Dallas Principle. Let's see. There's a little bit more. Here's a VR Paradise with, oops, that wasn't YouTube friendly. Pretend like you didn't see that. Some adult VR games, outline noir games. Borderlands 2 VR. Borderlands 2 VR again. Yeah, they're kind of showing different ways of saying the same thing. Top new releases. I wouldn't be surprised if these top new releases include more adult games too. This game, Bright Memory. I hope that actually gets finished and doesn't just get sold as is forever, which is my suspicion. Catherine, like to play that Tales of Vesperia. Definitely having more of a desire to play more Japanese games than Western games. I've had enough of them, Western games, for a while. Baba Is You, programming game, $11.99. That's not too bad. It's probably the best you're gonna get for it for a while. This probably is a great list to start building the best games that came out this year. And if you tried to do that, you'd probably realize there aren't too many of them. So yeah, you're starting to get into more of the lewd adult games. And this is just broken up by month, so every month there's definitely new games coming out. Ni no Kuni 2, or no, is this Ni no Kuni 1? Yes, Ni no Kuni 1, which now there's finally a point where you can play the remaster of the first game to then cover the second game. Legend of Bumbo, I don't know specifically why that isn't on my wish list, because I do want it. Let's see, Hades came out from its exclusivity deal, and this new Nancy Drew game nobody liked. It was like the first Nancy Drew game that they've done with the Unity engine. And then top sellers of 2019, also games that very possibly are going to have a lot of lewd adult games. Let's see, Witcher 3, Resident Evil 2 for $20. Is that with all the DLC though? Master Chief Collection makes sense. Fallen Order, sure, I'd love to play Fallen Order. Just don't want to spend $50 on it. I really have had no success at all playing new games. There's just way too much competition on YouTube. Cyberpunk's still getting pre-orders. People have been pre-ordering that for like 2 or 3 years now. Bloodstained, Sailed Well. Actually, I'm really surprised here. The top sellers were all AAA games at high prices, which I guess makes sense. So, no list here of the top cheap games. Alright, well, with that, I guess there's nothing more to really say. That's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos, because those things allegedly tell YouTube's algorithm to promote my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, you can support me through a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a gift card or game you'd like to see me cover, or a game off my wish list, all of which would be very much appreciated. Yeah, remember the Steam winter sale is still going on for a couple more days. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.